Mike Elko has done it again, another commitment for the Texas A&M Aggies, but this time in the 2027 class.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. You are Locked On the Texas A&M Aggies. I am your host, Matt Galatzan of Texas A&M Aggies on SI. Thank you for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is also brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Today, I am joined by my good buddy, Harrison Reno, who is my usual Tuesday, Thursday partner here on Locked On Aggies. We may shift that a little bit here in the future to accommodate his busy schedule, but we'll keep you up to date on that one. Harrison, another exciting day for Texas A&M Aggies recruiting. They have been on a tear this entire offseason, and it's been the best recruiting effort that we've seen out of College Station since the 2022 class with Jimbo Fisher. I think that we're both in agreement that this 2026 class is going to be elite and be a different thing than that 2022 debacle. But this news comes in the 2027 class. Four-star offensive tackle DeMarrion Johnson has committed to the Texas A&M Aggies, and he becomes the second commitment of the 2027 class, joining four-star quarterback Jacye Johnson, who committed just a few days ago. And things are starting to shape up pretty well for the 2027 class for Texas A&M, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think I think that's the big bonus of what they've already done in the 26 classes, that they can now start devoting more resources, more time to the 27 class, and go ahead and get that 27 class by this time next year into a position where you already have basically your full class. I know with the roster changes in terms of the no walk-ons and all that, or limited spots for walk-ons, these rosters are going to start to have more scholarship players. So we're going to start to see more business get done early in these classes, and you're already starting to see that with Texas A&M in the 26 class, and now you're starting to see it with the 27 class. I know you touched on Jacye Johnson the other day. I know several people who really like Jacye Johnson. I have not been able to go see him play, unfortunately. Hopefully, I will rectify that here in the coming months. But really, really solid quarterback prospect. I know everyone was after him. And then the Aggies go out a few days later and land another highly touted blue chip prospect in DeMarrion Johnson. Four-star guy per 247, number 12 offensive tackle, number 135 ranked prospect in the class. I mean, we're talking about a recruitment, Matt, that they had to beat out the likes of Alabama, Florida. Florida State offered, Ole Miss offered. I mean, we're talking Texas offered. Like, we're talking about these powerhouse programs, fellow programs that A&M wants to be in the same breath as, in the same sentence as. They're beating them out for these guys. A guy like a DeMarrion Johnson, who they're hoping is going to come in and be, in 2-3 years, a frontline starter on that offensive line.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about the names they were able to beat out for this kid. It's really starting to feel like Texas A&M is asserting itself as a recruiting powerhouse in college football, which is exactly what Mike Elko wants to do. He talked about, during SEC media days, how they need to get double-digit kids drafted every single year to be considered in the upper echelon of the SEC and compete for SEC championships. The better you do in the recruiting realm, the better you're going to do in that area. I know it's not all about star power when it comes to recruiting. That stuff can get a little skewed depending on how highly recruited a kid is or not, or how noticed he gets early on in his career and camps and all these different things. Those things can shift, but for the most part, it's pretty steadfast. If you're a highly rated kid, you're probably going to be a pretty good college football player as long as you do the work and you have the right attitude. So first two commits of the 2027 class for A&M, a big-time quarterback in Jacye Johnson, a big-time offensive tackle in DeMarrion Johnson. Johnson and Johnson, we are hitting the ground running here in College Station with this 2027 class, and it's great to see. You love to see the two most important positions on the football field, arguably, kind of get taken care of first. Now you can look towards the future and kind of build around that little core now that you've created with Johnson and Johnson, and they're starting to do that here already.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I didn't even put the no. I'm sorry. I didn't even put the Johnson. That's great. That's great. And Matt, just to add off. I mean, these are two top 100 prospects. Top 200 prospects, I should say, according to the 247 rankings. It makes you wonder, with two already in there from their top 200, how many more do they end up with? I mean, we're talking. If you already have two top 200 guys, I mean, there's potential. I mean, when you look at a lot of the names filling out the rest of the top 200. There's guys that A&M's after. I mean, look, the number one offensive tackle in the class, number two player in the nation, according to Percent Sports, is another Texas native, another offensive tackle in Kennedy Brown. Everyone in America is after that guy. I mean, we talk about guys like, obviously, there's a Damian Guyton who just committed to Texas Tech. I mean, there's a real big potential. It's not only that they are getting these blue chippers, which, as you said, I know stars are not everything in this industry when it comes to recruiting, although at the same time, that's kind of a lie. It's like they are everything. That's what drives headlines. That's what gets attention. But like you said, you'd rather take the chance on these 4 or 5 star guys, even if you aren't sure how they're going to pan out, because they do have a higher hit rate. And we're starting to see with A&M right now that they're starting to hit on those guys. They're starting to be, like you said, an actual power in terms of recruiting. And they're recruiting, as JD McCullough calls it, a program. They're recruiting like a program in terms of just like everybody else. And I think what you mentioned, the 2022 class, there are no notions. I think, well, back then it was like everyone talked about, A&M's just throwing money at the problem. Maybe taking some chances with some guys that maybe had some red flags that you were like, ooh, maybe it gives you pause. But now, of the guys they took in 26, of the guys they've taken now in 27, you aren't hearing a lot of the same whispers like, ooh, I'm a little bit concerned about this kid. Maybe there's something in his past or something that makes me concerned. Like, it seems like the biggest thing Elko has reinforced is he wants good players, Matt, but he wants good people. Like, he does not want the off-field drama that came with the Jimbo Fisher era.
Yeah, absolutely. He's recruiting culture just as much as he's recruiting talent. And when you combine the two and you can, sort of get that going and like have a symbiosis between those two aspects of your recruiting, then you're going to be very successful. Just quickly before we jump on to our first break here, there's another 2027 recruit that I know you know a lot about out of the state of Georgia. Jabari Watkins, 4-star wide receiver, released his top 9 schools. I believe it was yesterday. Georgia Tech, no surprise there, being out of the state of Georgia for Jabari Watkins. Missouri, Illinois, Pittsburgh, Florida State, Cal, Nebraska, and Texas A&M. We talked about Jace Johnson. We talked about DeMarrion Johnson. Those are two very important pieces to add to your class in terms of their position. Now giving Jace Johnson in that 2027 class a little bit of a weapon potentially with Jabari Watkins could go a long way.
Yeah, Matt, as somebody who tries to cover the state of Georgia in terms of recruiting, it's been really fun to see over the last few years a lot of these programs start dipping into the state, and it feels like at a higher rate. And we're seeing that with Texas A&M in this 27 class, even in 26. I mean, Texas A&M came into the state of Georgia and took one of the best receiver prospects this state has seen in a few years in Aaron Gregory. And now they're coming in trying to get another one back to the well in Jabari Watkins. I mean, this is a kid he put on Twitter back in the spring. I believe he hit 21 miles per hour on the GPS. 21 miles an hour. That's elite speed for college football players, even NFL players. I think Tyreek Hill hit 22, 23 miles an hour, they said in an NFL game. We're talking about this kid's hitting it at 21 as a probably 16, 17-year-old high school player. He's already hitting those speeds. I have not been able to go see him in person, but I know people who have, and everything I've heard about the guy makes me want to go see him. He's down there in Thomasville, Georgia, which is South Georgia, Thomas County Central. It's a little bit of a haul for me in terms of a drive, but everything I've heard is it's well worth the trip. I believe this guy does a little bit of everything for him. He's not only a receiver, but I think he even plays running back for them over there at Thomas County Central. So I'm excited to see where this one goes. I don't think A&M's going to be the last major program to get in on this kid. I think you're going to see pretty much everyone trying to get in here. The people who are not in this, top list are not going to stop recruiting this kid, because I think this kid's going to be one of the just highly recruited prospects from the state of Georgia in this 27 class.
Yeah, and you talk about Jace Johnson also being from Valdosta, Georgia, there in the Peach State. Maybe that gives A&M a little bit of an extra, push in that recruitment potentially. Having another Georgia kid there as your top commitment at the moment. Let's change gears real quick. We're going to move off of recruiting and take our first break, and then when we get back, we're going to talk about, is A&M cursed in the AP Top 25? Stick with us. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose a spot for for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices usually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. Are you tired of endless scrolling, trying to find the best deal? Game Time Zone deals pick the best seats in your section for you. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Game Time app, last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We are back, Harrison, and we are going to talk about what might be a little bit of a curse for Texas A&M in terms of the AP Top 25, which was released yesterday. Texas A&M came in at number 19 on the list, behind schools like Florida and Michigan and a few other ones in there. Kansas State, I believe, was above Texas A&M. I can't remember who was number 18 off the top of my head. OU, yeah, who John Mateer may have a gambling problem, but that's another story entirely. But number 19, pretty good spot for them to start. I think we can both agree that, just based on their recent history, that's about where they should fit with their propensity, that little stigma that surrounds them going 8-4 and all that stuff. But maybe it's not so good that they were in the top 25 at all. That's what I'm hearing, because apparently Texas A&M is a little bit cursed when it comes to the preseason AP Top 25, and let me show you what I mean. In 2019, Texas A&M started the season ranked number 12 in the preseason AP Top 25, and they finished the season unranked. 2013, they started number 13, and they finished number 4. Pretty good. But then each of the last 4 seasons, A&M has started number 6 in the preseason, number 6 in the preseason, number 23 in the preseason, and now number 20 in the preseason in 2024, number 19 in 2025. And in each of those 4 seasons from 2021 to 2024, after starting the season ranked, A&M finished the season unranked. I don't particularly buy into these curses or these, weird juju things and all this stuff, but it's definitely a concerning trend if you think about it, Harrison.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on the whole curses, bad juju part. But I do think, I don't think there's this exterior force that's, keeping A&M out of the polls at the end of the year. But I do think it's very much maybe a mental thing. I do think there is, with some of these things, when you talk about losing streaks to a team or something like that, I think it can get into people's heads, get into a program head, and maybe affect them in certain situations. Maybe not so much so here with A&M. But Matt, I'm a little bit surprised with how A&M finished in the AP preseason poll. I had seen and that's just because I'd seen, other national analysts putting them lower. We're talking 23, 24. I was like, okay, they're a little bit higher than I thought they would be. I thought a lot of the AP guys or people would have them a little bit lower. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the curse, it's it's the remaining leftover part of Jimbo Fisher. I mean, we've talked about on this show plenty of times. I know you've mentioned it. It's that 8-4 Aggie meme that they just have to break. And when you talk about what Mike Elko is building with this program, that's one of the remaining walls that he has to bust through in terms of not only does he have to recruit at a high level and keep those guys, something that Jimbo Fisher was not able to do, but now he has to get this roster together, coach it through a 12-game season, and get them ranked and keep them ranked, while also managing expectations and all that. It's one of those remaining walls that they need to break. And Matt, I don't know about you, even though the SEC has gotten tougher and the schedule's not as easy as some others in this conference, I feel pretty solid that the floor of this team, I'm sitting at 9-3, as we've talked about. And 9-3 with that schedule, and it really does come down to who you lose to and how you look. I don't see a way where at 9-3 they're not ranked.
Yeah, no, I would totally agree with you on that one. I think if they're 9-3, they're a fringe playoff contender.
Yeah, I think you're right up there.
Yeah, I mean, the losses would have to be to specific teams for that to be the scenario. I think probably Notre Dame, LSU, and Texas, something like that. Maybe you could get away with South Carolina in there, but outside of that, it's pretty much those three games that you're going to look at and be like, okay, if we lose these three, then we can, still have a chance at a playoff berth, especially considering how close those games are. But the trend, it's kind of unfair to Mike Elko. This preseason top 25 curse definitely started under Jimbo Fisher in 2019, but the 8-4 stigma thing it's kind of a real thing, and I know A&M fans hate to hear about it, but if you go all the way back to, I mean, this kind of thing dates all the way back to, I mean, man, I'm looking back, like all the way back to R.C. Slocum. 1995, they go 9-3. 96, they're 6-6. They win 11 games in 98. They win 9 games in 97. And then that's where it kind of starts for the most part. 1999, they go 8-4. 2000, they go 7-5. 2001, 8-4. 2002, 6-6. R.C. Slocum retires. They move on to Dennis Franchione, who goes in 5 seasons, 4-8, 7-5, 5-6, 9-4, and 7-6. They moved on to Mike Sherman, 4-8, 6-7, 9-4, 7-6. Move on to Kevin Sumlin. He wins 11 games in 2012 with Johnny Manziel, who takes the world by storm and wins the Heisman Trophy. Then 2013, he goes 9-4, and then 8-5, 8-5, 8-5, 7-6. Jimbo Fisher goes 8-4 in the regular season in his first year in 2018 it goes and finishes with 9 overall after a win in the Gator Bowl. Then it's 8-5, 9-1 in the COVID year, and then 8-4, 5-7, 7-6. And then Mike Elko in his first season goes 8-5, which I was very impressed with, considering it was his first season as the head coach, taking over a new program, bringing in all those new transfers. But they need to break the trend, and they need to break it fast.
And honestly, I think what he said at SEC Media Day in terms no, it wasn't even SEC Media Day, Matt. It was his opening fall camp presser. In terms of, he was talking about the expectations. He was like, after the 7-1 start, expectations jumped up on us. And he was like, if you told us before the season that we were going to go 8-5, he was like, I don't think people would have been as upset as they turned out to be. Like, I think he did better than most of us. I didn't have A&M going 8-5 last year. I thought the way Jimbo left the program and the roster in terms of the mass exodus, I was like, man, I don't like 8-5 is really good for that, because I thought it was going to be a hard reset, was going to need time to build, and he took that and he actually put a foundation under what is seeming to be a program that's on the rise now. Like there's more confidence going into year 2 with Elko than I thought there would be after year 1, because I mean, you see it, these other programs. I mean, for one, Georgia in 2016, they went 8-5 with Kirby Smart after multiple 10-win seasons. I mean, you talk about Texas with Sarkisian, they went 5-7 in their first year. If I remember correctly, it was 5-7. Mm-hmm. like you see this drop among like some of these coaches among college football. Nick Saban didn't have a great first year at Alabama. You see him drop.
7-6.
Yeah, hit a floor before they build up. And with Elko, it's like, man, he kind of kept it business as usual in terms of where they were under Fisher for the most part.
Yeah, absolutely. So if anybody's going to break this curse that they've brought in since RC Slocum retired, I think Mike Elko is definitely the man for the job. We'll see how it goes, though. It'll be interesting to watch. Let's take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll briefly touch on some preseason accolades for this Texas A&M roster that are starting to build up. So stick with us, and we'll be back right after this. Okay, we are back, and we are in our final segment here for today's episode of Locked On Aggies, and we are going to talk a little bit, Harrison, about the preseason accolades that this team is starting to rack up for 2025. Just today, Trey Zuhn, the starting left tackle and guy who has been a stalwart over there on the left side of the line, was named a Lombardi Award preseason watch list for the Lombardi Award. And let's start there. Let's talk about Trey Zuhn. He is such a critical part of this offensive line. He's the leader of the room. He's one of the best left tackles in the SEC, and he's a guy that, is just critical to what this football team does on a daily basis.
It's so and this is kind of goes back into our top 25. It's so weird to me, Matt, with how this team's talked about, because I don't know how many other SEC programs can bring back all 5 of their starting offensive linemen, including one of the top offensive tackles in this league, in the nation, and just not really be talked about as much in the national media perspective. It's really, it's just weird to me. It's odd to me, because in a conference where, especially this year and across the board in college football, where there's not much returning starting offensive linemen. I mean, returning starters across the board that have the experience that Trey Zuhn has. It's really, it's just weird to me. It's something that I'm curious to see if in years past, when you bring back all these starters like A&M does, especially at a spot as key as the offensive line, that it translates into success. I'm curious to see if that trend sticks. Part of me says it will, even with the change in college football these days. I do think experience does translate into more success. But I mean, for Zuhn specifically, Matt, we were talking pre-show about these guys that are on these preseason award lists, and going back to what you said about Elko was saying they need to have double-digit guys in the NFL draft each year. They got a chance to start that trend right now. I mean, you talk about breaking the trend of 8-4 Aggies or 8-5 Aggies. They got a trend to set a new one in terms of, hey, they could have a double-digit draft class, because they could have 4 or 5 starters just from that offensive line alone get drafted in the NFL draft.
Yeah, absolutely. And that brings us into our next group here. Maybe the best offensive lineman on the team. Armaj Reed Adams was named a first-team preseason ESPN All-American, kind of headlining the group right there with along that offensive line with Spencer Fano from Utah, Oliva Vega Lone from Penn State. I'm sure I just absolutely butchered that. Jake Slaughter from Florida and Caden Proctor from Texas A&M. I mean, from Alabama, excuse me, as that offensive line group. Pretty elite group there. So for Armaj Reed Adams to be included there, I think is a big deal. And then you move over to the defensive side of things at linebacker, and Torian York was named a second-team ESPN preseason All-American, joining Deontay Lawson from Alabama and CJ Allen from Georgia as the other second-team linebackers there. So pretty good stuff there for the Aggies as well.
Yeah, I'm really curious. This linebacker class for this NFL draft with Torian York, with Anthony Hill, CJ Allen. I'm sure there's other guys around the country that are all also draft eligible. It's really going to be interesting to see this season play out, because Torian York's already worked himself into a position where he is a top 3 prospect at his position. And honestly, I maybe Aggie fans won't want to hear this, but I think right now Anthony Hill's probably number 1. If nothing more than the reason that he's so versatile as a pass rusher, which makes me think like, hey, if we're talking about true inside backers who aren't going to move away, then like we put Anthony Hill in a status of his own, category of his own, then Tarian York has a real chance in terms of making a case for himself as a true, number one linebacker of these returning linebackers. Because it's only really him and CJ Allen, the guy that, he was named second team for this list with.
Yeah, absolutely. And just real quick, I'm going to go through this full ESPN list for those who are curious. But yeah, Harrison, I totally agree. Tarian York has a chance to do something special this year for that Texas A&M defense and really establish himself as, one of the best linebackers in college football, which I believe that he is. I think he's right there with Anthony Hill as the second best linebacker in the SEC, alongside guys like Whit Weeks and Allen and some of these other Deontay Lawson, some of these other guys. He's such a talented guy and a great story starting as a 3-star recruit. But real quick, here's your first team ESPN preseason All-American college football team. You have Cade Klubnik out of Clemson as your starting quarterback. Notre Dame's Jeremiah Love and Penn State's Nicholas Singleton as your running backs. Wide receiver, you have Jeremiah Smith of Ohio State. Alabama's Ryan Williams. The tight end is former Aggie Eli Stowers, who is now at Vanderbilt and arguably the best tight end in all of college football. I told you the offensive line already. Spencer Fano, Olavavega Lone from Penn State. Sorry again. Jake Slaughter out of Florida at center. Armaj Reed Adams from Texas A&M at guard. And Caden Proctor from Alabama at the other tackle. The all-purpose player, Desmond Reed from Pittsburgh. And then you move on to the defense, and the defensive line is Dylan Stewart from South Carolina, Peter Woods from Clemson, LT Overton, another former Aggie from Alabama, and TJ Parker from Clemson. Your linebackers are Anthony Hill out of Texas, Kyle Lewis out of Pittsburgh, Gabe Jacye out of Illinois, and then your defensive backfield, the corners are Leonard Moore and Jermon McCoy from Notre Dame and Tennessee, respectively. And your safeties are Caleb Downs out of Ohio State, who, for my money, is the best player in college football. And then Michael Taff out of Texas, patrolling the other safety. He was an All-American last year. And then your special teams, your punter kicker specialist is Dominic Zavada from Michigan. No surprise there. Your punter is Brett Thorson from Georgia. Again, no surprise there. And your returner is the speedster Barian Brown out of LSU. So a lot of talent on these teams. I'm excited to see if any more Aggies can make the final list at the end of the season, because I think there's a couple guys that will have a chance if they stay healthy. But that's going to do it today for another episode of Locked On Aggies. We appreciate you joining us as always. Thank you for making Locked On Aggies your first listen today. For your second listen, please check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings, and you can be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape. Find the Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to our channel, give me a follow on Texas A&M Aggies on SI and on X at Matt Galatzan. Give Harrison a follow over on X at Harrison Reno, and we will see you next time.